excited to have a couple of the best broadcasters in the game in Billy Jaffe and Dave Starman. So whereabouts are you guys at right now? Dave, we'll start with you.
I am in Long Beach, New York, and we are, just doing what everybody else is doing. We're staying home and staying safe.
How about you, Billy?
Well, I am just outside of Boston, a town called Newton, very close to Boston College. If you're looking for a geography lesson, which I know we're not, thank you for having me and having us on. And I will tell you that this is the first Zoom I've done where it does not involve some form of drinking. So if you see me lift something that is water, that is not vodka.
Yes, cup of tea. Good point, Billy.
There we go. Cheers, boys. Yeah. It's funny. Last night I had one of those. So my Bantam AAA team, Chicago Young Americans, we won the national championship literally 20 years ago this month. And
who coached it? Who is the coach?
Stan Stiopkin.
Know the name. I don't know him. I don't. Okay. Yeah, you're a lot younger than I am.
Well, Dave, he's actually he knows Alexei real well, both Russian guys from
very nice. Alexei's Billy. I think probably know Alexei a little bit from your time on Long Island. He is a classic.
Yes, he is. And a little nugget for you, Toph, is I was on the first ever Young American team.
Were you really?
First ever.
Wow. Yeah. Who coached that team?
Guy by the name of Gary Beluda. Gary Beluda is a tremendous coach. I actually, in my file over here, I'm not going to go to the right. Gary had a book about this big, a playbook of systems and structure. The Young Americans came into being, and sorry to get off topic here, but Starman's Mr. Youth Hockey, and I know you are now too and everything, but they came into being because, what was his name, Ira Greenberg, if I remember correctly, he wanted to start a new organization from the Team Illinois people and the Minor Hawks. Young Americans came into play. I played up that year. It was, I think it was my Bantam year. I was a Bantam minor. I played major with them. And Gary, he was a hard-ass, tough, great coach. So I remember it. And I still have his book in there. And every once in a while, I'll take a look into it on some plays or breakouts and stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, you ready to get your mind blown?
Yeah.
Ira Greenberg is my grandfather.
I think I knew that.
I think we have talked about that actually, but I think
so did your mom? That's right. So it was. And what's your cousin's then?
So you would have known my uncle Steve, who is my mom is Ira's daughter, and Steve is her brother.
What is Ira's son's name?
Steve
Green. Okay, that's his. Okay, I got you. Okay. I'm putting it all together. So I was right. So Ira started it, right?
Yeah. And coming back full circle to like the start of this conversation. So like our Bantam team won the national championship 20 years ago, playing for the Young Americans, who you played for the first team that my grandfather started. So they always say hockey's a small world. Here you go.
I'm glad I remembered the name the right way then too. Otherwise I'd feel like a bigger, jerk if I didn't remember the name. I'm glad I got that right. Okay, the mind's still working.
Ira's a bit larger than life personality, so it's tough to not at least have some remembrance of him.
Excellent. Well, so, if please tell the family then that I say hello.
I will.
I don't think they'll remember me, but tell them I say hello.
I will for sure. Well, thanks guys for coming on. I've had a ton of fun doing these, and I'm really excited to pick your guys' brain about the sport and about the broadcasting side of it. And, we've had different conversations throughout the years as you guys have gone through your journeys through the college hockey thing. And so love to ask you a few questions about the game and what you guys do.
Shoot.
All right. Got a couple favorites to start with. So Dave, why don't we start with you? Who is your favorite coach to sit down and talk hockey with as you're going through your hockey preparations?
God, it could be a 60-way tie for first place. I'll tell you what, I used to love sitting with Jack Parker. I mean, Jack was unreal. I mean, he had one-liners you would never expect coming in anywhere. And when we used to do our production calls for what was then CSTV, which became CBS College Sports, and now CBS Sports Network, Jack would do his conference calls from anywhere. Like, there was one time he was getting fitted for a suit. There was another time where he was out for a walk he just, no matter where he was, didn't matter. He was always fun to talk to. But I think that each one of them brings their own very unique dynamic. There's some guys that are a little bit more laid back. Like Dick Umili was a lot of fun just because of his sense of humor and the way that he could circle back on different topics. Plus, he's story told more than anything. So you got a history lesson from Umili in a lot of these conference calls. And then you get guys that were ultra intense. Dave Haxtell was ultra intense when we used to talk to him, but his hockey mind was so good that you literally hung on every word in a lot of those calls. So it's not a cop-out answer. I mean, I can't tell you that I had a favorite or I have a favorite, but I do relish what Billy and I do. I do relish the opportunity to be able to pick the brains of some of the great coaching minds in our country, especially at the NCAA level, because through those guys, it helps guys like us who are on the youth side of it take from what they do and bring it down to our youth hockey teams in terms of what are you working on? What are some of the things that have advanced in technique? What are some of the things that we can be working on with our younger players to get them to your level? I know a lot of people talk about how they only want to know from the NHL coaches because they're at the top of the heap and that's the top league. But when you think about it, the kids that are 14, 15, even down to 13, 12, we're not teaching them what they're teaching in the NHL, the American League level. We're teaching what we want our kids to be able to do to get to that next level. So it's a great ability for us to be able to interact with those coaches.
Yeah, for sure. Billy, how about you?
Well, Toph, it's like, think about your coaching days, your recruiting days when you were with Cornell, right?
Yeah.
Did you have one favorite recruit? Well, you had most that you liked. When I say like more than another, meaning you liked them all. In fact, early on in the process, you probably loved them all because that was, you're recruiting. But then you end up liking a lot of them in many different ways. And absolutely agree with Dave about the names that he already mentioned. I'll give you just a few others that always stick out with me. Look, when I fell into this business, Ron Mason, I sat down with him in his office and eventually said to me, you're not half bad. I'm going to keep it clean. You're not half bad for a Wolverine. You're all right. So, he accepted me. I always enjoyed talking to Red. One time I did a talk with Red. I literally was like in a schwitz. We had worked out, and we're talking and just, shooting the crap there. And it was great. Look, other guys in the college, I love Jerry York. I've gotten to know Jerry really, really well over the years. One of my first ever college games was against Bowling Green, and he was the coach here. So we always go and talk about that.
Hey, Billy, by the way, Jerry still wants us to open up a bagel store in Chestnut Hill, by the way.
Well, given the climate right now, that might be great or it might be the worst idea ever. Toph, young guys out there. Mark Dennehy, great. I'm gonna forget people and not leave them out. And there's just so many guys out there. But I will tell you this too, with all the NHL stuff, Toph, that I do. Bruce Cassidy is phenomenal. John Cooper, fantastic. It's all about trust. Bob Hartley, when I was with the Atlanta Thrashers organization, Uncle Bob, as his nickname was, because he always talked about it around a campfire, having a talk with us after the other media left. We'd sit down and have the Uncle Bob conversation. But, you and Dave, we understand this. It's about gaining their respect, gaining their trust. If you don't do that, you're never going to get the kind of relationships. No different than life, though. So many people out there really have enjoyed them all. I could probably make an easier case on guys I don't like because there's only been a few of them, but I'm not going to do that right here. Right now.
Off air.
Yes.
Well, how about this? And I'll stay with you, Billy, here. So how do you do that? You talk about the respect and the trust that you need to build with your profession, with the coaches and the players that you're reporting on. And commentating about and analyzing. What are the biggest ways that you build trust within?
Well, it's no different than as a player. You show work ethic, you show determination, you show drive. How do you do it as a broadcaster? You show up to practice. You make sure that you're there talking with players. You talk with coaches, not just on the record, but off the record stuff. You show them that, you can be trusted with regard to information. If they're listening to a game, they don't have to agree with your analysis, and some will tell you that, but at least make it fair and honest. I've always been what I call an emotional broadcaster, meaning passionate and fun. Hockey is freaking fun. If we take it too seriously, then shame on us, right? There's stuff that's serious in this world. Hockey's not one of them. We take it seriously, but it's not serious, right? So you just go out there, but you be fair and honest and you be accurate. That's a big thing. Accurate. Again, you don't have to always be in agreement with me, but be accurate with my information. If you screw up, you screw up. It's like a referee. Okay, I screwed up. As a broadcaster, you just say, hey, maybe I've made a couple mistakes. I might say to a coach, you know what? I got that wrong. I'm sorry, or whatever. And you move on. How do you get their trust? It's no different than being a good human, Toph. Show up, be honest, be fair, and you will get the respect.
Love that. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, Billy brought up some good points here. And, Billy, you brought up Jerry York a minute ago, and this kind of leads into where I'm going to go with this. I remember in year one, when we were at CSTV together, you had done a game on a Friday night. I was in studio, and it was a Boston College game, and we had BC again the next week, and it was your off week, and I was going to be doing the game on site. And during our conference call with Jerry, he said one thing to me. He goes, you said something between periods that I really, really liked. I thought that was a great point. And to me, that was the start of my building trust with Jerry York, which has gone a long way. And I agree with you. I think it's about being there. I think it's about talking with them. The better they get to know you, the more they're going to start to trust you, and the more they're going to start to respect you. And, guys like us, we can all bring something to a good hockey conversation. I think that helps, because it's one thing if you get into the generic conversation. Sometimes that trust takes longer, but we're hockey guys, and I think that carries a lot of weight. Plus, we've all coached at different levels. Billy, you've coached at different levels. Toph, you've coached at different levels. I sometimes I laugh with some of the coaches that I talk to because I coached against them, somewhere in the minor leagues. I mean, that's kind of the neat thing. So there's that component to it. So I think that the more homework you do, the more you're doing your research, the more you're being upfront, the more you're interacting with their programs, showing up, being around, and once you get on the air, making good points. You can be critical of a team, and I think sometimes you earn these guys' respect when you make a critical point about their team, but it's an accurate point, because they might circle back to the following week and say, hey, I played that clip of what you said about our team's forechecking 2-hour team. I didn't have to say it. You said it, and it was good that they heard it from a different voice, whether it be positive or negative. I think that's one of the ways you can build some trust.
And just to finish on that same thing that David's talking about there, Toph, I do find that college coaches might be a little more agreeable or amenable to especially that type of stuff. Pro coaches, it's not that they're not into it. I don't know if they care as much. It's 82 games. You play one game, you move on to the next. It's short-term memory. College, you've got 4 days of practice or 5 days of practice, and they're on you. It's more parenting than it is coaching almost. And I think after a while, I think college coaches are afraid maybe that kids don't listen here and there. And so they say, hey, if somebody else can say it, like David said, that it almost helps. In these pros, quite honestly, the pros somewhat don't care what broadcasters say. If you're being rude or if you're being inaccurate, yeah, they do. But otherwise, they're just in this mode of game. Go, 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 go. College, I found they're very open to listening, much more what we have to say.
Now, do you guys, with that, now that we have the internet and social media and everything, one thing that you say during a broadcast can certainly get to the coach's attention right away because somebody can hear it and say, I can't believe Dave Starman said this on the air or whatever. Do you guys ever feel any more maybe pressure is the right word. Do you ever feel any more pressure because now what you're doing is so much more easily criticized or given to people?
Billy, you want to take that one first?
Billy?
Do I feel more pressure? You know what? I feel pressure just to be good. I think that, and to be accurate. That's just me though, Toph. I think I felt that since day one. I've always had a chip on my shoulder because I didn't play in the NHL. That I have to be better and I have to be more prepared and I have to just be on. I find there's very little margin of error for error given me, and also just that I give myself. But because of the internet, you know what? The pressure of the internet, I find a lot of times is not to go on the internet because it's just a cesspool of you can get your ego stroked and you can get chopped off at the knees. I mean, in the matter of 12 seconds, right? So, to me, the pressure of the internet, no, I don't feel the pressure of the internet. I think when early on, I think when I started with the New York Islanders, when I was doing MSG Network and the Islanders, I do think that I will say that I was probably more into making sure everything was okay, that the internet liked me, because that's when the internet really was beginning in the sense of message boards and fan clubs and all that crap. And you know what? You just realize it's just look, I had a lot of hair then. I don't have much hair now, so I don't care anymore. You know, that's what it is, experience. So no, I feel pressure enough for myself because I always feel like if I make a mistake, my job could be in jeopardy.
How about you, Dave?
Well, Billy, it's on a funny note. Here's where I feel a little pressure. Now, as you well know, because my wife was part of your broadcast team at one point at FS Detroit, you know, my wife is on our broadcast team, and you see the little Emmys that are sitting over Billy's shoulder? She's got 3 of them. I don't have any. So the pressure that I feel is to try to be as good as her on a nightly basis, or else I just know I'm going to hear it all week. But when you talk about the pressure of the internet, I think, you know, the fan bases around the country, it's really unique. And I've experienced now, having gone through every conference and every team at the college level especially, you know, there are certain fan bases that are a lot more passionate than others. And you might put something out during a game, and that fan base may erupt one way or the other. And, you know, they're going to come at you or they're going to get behind you. It's really unique. And I single out North Dakota in this respect. The North Dakota fan base, it's like Alabama football. They are the only game in town. They're the biggest thing in town. Their fan base is as passionate as any fan base in college sports. And it took a while to win that fan base over. But once you have, and you know that they're kind of on your side and they trust you a little bit, it makes your life a little bit easier. But the pressure, I think, and it's weird, the pressure I feel is, like Billy said, just to be good, to be accurate, to be entertaining, to be informative. I always go into every game thinking, who can you possibly reach, or who could I reach in this broadcast with a really good point, whether it's reaching a young player with a good point about how we play a certain situation, whether it's reaching a youth hockey coach about how to handle a situation or something they could put into their practices or their methodology. And then there's the other part of it. This is the part sometimes that you don't think about. You got to realize that a lot of times when you're doing these games, especially at the NCAA level, parents are watching, grandparents are watching, aunts and uncles are watching, friends are watching. Can you say something that during the broadcast about one of those kids where mom and dad are going to look at each other and smile and say, wow, I so appreciate the fact that Dave or Shireen or Ben or Billy said something that nice about my child. That's a great thing. And the other part of it is you want to put something on out in that game where the programs could utilize what you're saying about the program, because all of these programs are special in their own way, whether like you played at Lina, whether it's the great vibe of Lina Rink, Billy, you played at Yost, whether it's the great atmosphere at Yost Arena. So the pressure to, I think, entertain, inform, and analyze is the one thing that I go into every game with, and I've got that little note sheet in front of me for every game. Just try to make sure you check each of those boxes as you're on the air.
Hey, Toph, real quick, two things. One, I get some of my most nervous moments every year is when I do the NCAA tournament for ESPN, because I'm so concerned that I'm not going to be, because of course I watch video, and of course I talk to people, and of course I talk to the coaches, but I still at times don't feel like I have the ins and outs of the teams to where I do in the NHL again. I can do a game in the NHL like that almost on a daily basis, and especially if it's a team I see like the Bruins all the time. But I always want to make sure that Dave makes a great point about the families. It's a huge pressure because for most kids there, college hockey is their end-all be-all. And if they, you know, you don't want to be the jerk, the jackass to say something, not just wrong, but it's hurtful. So you want to make sure that you're accurate and everything on it. So that's something. I still get nervous when I do the NCAA tournament game. The other thing is, David, I can give you a website. These are all rented. It's one's got the name Peter on it. Another's got. So
hey, you earn those things. Don't kid yourself.
That's unbelievable. Well, I wanted to ask you guys, moving on a little bit here, been able to, Billy, you do a lot of work with the Bruins now, and Dave, you do the World Juniors here in the States. Dave, I wanted to start with you on this one. What was it like calling the game when Troy Terry did his thing and the U.S. beat Canada in that gold medal? Or was it the gold medal game or the semis? I think it was the gold medal
They
game.
beat Russia in the semis, and they beat Canada in the goal, both of them in shootouts, and we had the Troy Terry-a-thon for kind of both nights. I'll tell you what, the vibe in Montreal was unreal, and it was really cool for me because at the time I was scouting for the Canadians. So we held our winter meetings in and around the World Junior, in and around the finals. So I remember the day of the Russia game all day long, we were in meetings all day from 8 a.m. to like 4:30 p.m. And then I ran down to the Canadian suite and changed into my other suit and ran up to the broadcast booth. So it was like, kind of getting rid of the scouting meetings out of part of your brain and getting back into broadcast mode. And then the next day we did the same thing. So, I mean, I was kind of on a mental overdrive for those 2 days, but the vibe in and around the city was incredible. The vibe in the building was incredible. The fans there were just off the charts, and the intensity of both games was so good. Plus, you'll appreciate this too. You get a little bit emotionally involved with the team that you're calling. I try to be very even keel, but you get a little emotionally involved with the team, in the World Juniors, because you've kind of lived with them now for a couple of weeks, and you're watching the ups and downs. The coaches are probably friends of yours from the season. You've interacted with a lot of these players all season, so you kind of want to see them get over the hump and achieve their goals. And then you just have the pure drama of the games. I'll tell you what, I've called 5 or 6 games at the World Juniors that I think to me are maybe my 5 or 6 favorite games that I've ever been a part of, and that includes a couple Stanley Cup finals I've been a part of and that kind of stuff. But that game, those pair of games against Russia and then against Canada to win the gold medal in 2017 were off the charts intense on every level you could possibly be at.
Very cool. Very cool. And Billy, for you, covering the Bruins, what's it like covering a team like that? Because there's so many personalities. It just seems like a fun group to be around. Over social media this week, they had the Zoom call where all the guys that won the cup together, they got on the Zoom call, and it sounded like that was a lot of fun. So what's it like covering the Bruins from that aspect?
Well, in particular, last year and this year, besides them being very good on the ice, and that's a kind of an understatement. They're the best team in the NHL so far this year, record-wise. What they are, Toph, is genuinely, organically, really a close team. And you don't always get that at this level. You just don't. I've been around. I've been doing NHL stuff for 21 years now, 22 years. And we all have buddies that played there. I think you're still young enough. You may have a few that are still playing, Toph, but my buddies are all gone retired. But you talk to them, you're around them. And yes, it's still a fun game, but it's a business. And therefore, you're hard pressed at times to find a team that genuinely cares about each other. This Bruins team, I've lived it, I've seen it. I'm not in the room with them, obviously, but I'm around them on an almost daily basis when they're in town, is genuinely close. I mean, it starts with leadership, with Zdeno and Patrice, and then it goes to the rest of the guys through there. And just a tremendous group of individuals and great management and the coaching staff. I love this coaching staff led by Bruce Cassidy and Kevin Dean and Joey Sacco, Jay Pandolfo. Think of those names right there alone, right? So it's entertaining, it's passionate, it's genuine. So to cover this team is a ton of fun. Let's also let's face facts. Winning is fun too, right? But how do you get there? Winning, you get there by being a good team. But you can be a good team, but you take it to the next level by to be a great team, I think, when you genuinely care about each other. And that, so, I mean, I'm not a part of anything there except just part of the peripheral covering them, but to be around it and to learn a lot and to listen a lot and to have relationships with a lot of these guys it's very gratifying. It's a lot of fun. And when playoffs come, oh man, you want to talk about just energy, and you want to talk like I literally, I can't wait for warm-ups in playoffs when we're on TV, and then the music for when the team comes on the ice to begin the game. I still get like a little kid, and I love that part of it.
That's amazing. And you mentioned Chara and you mentioned Bergeron. I mean, if you're in hockey circles, you kind of hear the stories of just about how they police that. I think police isn't even the right word, but maybe it is, how they run that locker room. What do they do, and how truly special are those two guys?
Well, they're disgusting because they're so damn good at everything that they do. I can't stand these guys. These are the guys that you're just like, really? Come on. I recently did a sit down before this event that we're going through with Zdeno Chara, a 1-hour sit down. I hosted it up on the dais with him, and I called him, and it wasn't hyperbole there. It's saying the same thing here. The most interesting professional hockey player I've ever covered. His linguistic ability, he speaks 6 languages, 7 languages fluently, his outside interest of hockey, his way that he's approached his career, his life, etc. It's incredibly well-rounded. and it's incredibly interesting, at least for somebody like me. He runs it. I don't think he thinks it's not perfect, but he runs it. One of his rules, Toph and Dave, that there's no such thing as a rookie. Everything, it's a first-year player. So right there, it shows you, they don't do rookie hazing there. They have a rookie dinner, but, when you come out for your first game, you don't skate alone. Char doesn't like that. You're part of this team. We skate with you. Again, your first year, you're not a rookie. It's just a little insight, a little nugget into how he views the room. So your opinion as a rookie in the room is still valuable. It's not one of those, we don't want to hear from you. We want to hear from you because as a first-year player, you're as important as a ninth-year player. Bergeron just does everything right. He's good-looking. He's in control. He's smart. He's, he wanted to work on his shot, so he works on his shot. Now he's got a laser, right? Before it was always good. Now it's great. He can play with 14 different injuries, just like Chara, too. You shatter his jaw, he's going to be out there. So all these guys just do things the right way. I know it's kind of a lame-ass answer, Toph, but it's just the truth. Some people have it. I wish that I did. They just have that extra nth degree thing that they get and they bring out. And because they do it the right way, they talk with people, not at them. That locker room is very much in control. It's definitely, and I'm not, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not chastising the use of the word policing, because I get what you're saying. They just run the room, but it's not with an iron fist. It's kind of with an open embrace, but you better do it the right way, meaning, do it your way, make sure it works. And if you're not fair, if you're not honest, if you're not prepared, then you'll hear about it from those
guys. Yeah, for sure. I mean, so you guys have met Jeff, my co-host on the podcast, and he signed with the Bruins after his third year at Western Michigan, and he tells two pretty cool stories. Like Chara, just like what you were saying, he's a nobody coming in, rookie, and Chara took 5 minutes out of his day to just ask about him. She said, hey, what's going on? Where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. Anything I could do to help you, just let me know. And Chara probably knew that he wasn't going to make the team and he was going to end up in the AHL, but at the same time, he just took 5 minutes out of his day to welcome him. And he always remembers that. And then Bergeron, so Jeff, that summer that he signed, got a terrible concussion, just a freak accident into the boards, out for a year and a half. And Bergeron had concussion issues at the start of his career too. And so again, Jeff's a nobody coming in, and Bergeron took like 30 minutes to talk to Jeff just to see how he was doing. I've gone through this stuff. Anything you need, let me know. And I just thought that was really cool.
That's how they are, guys. There's a great article about Patrice Bergeron helping out a player by the name of Jamel Smith, who was going through depression. And Bergeron just felt something was wrong, and he had only known him for a few weeks, literally picked off waivers. And he made sure to sit and talk with him and help him get help. So those players are they're great people to begin with. So that's where it starts.
It's funny because in talking about this, like I remember my first year when I was in the American Hockey League working with the Baltimore Skipjacks. Right in the beginning of the season, Joel Quenneville just played his 800th NHL game with Washington, and then the Capitals sent him down to Baltimore. And Quinn could have packed it in and gone home and not dealt with a season of riding the buses around the American League, but instead he became almost like the third coach. Robbie Laird was the head coach. Barry Trotz was the assistant coach, and I spent a lot of time with Barry that year, kind of, at his hip. He took me under his wing. I was lucky for that, but it was interesting sitting there with Barry and Quenneville watching video, because Quenneville was starting to pick the brain of Trotz because Joel knew he wanted to coach. But Joel also became such a mentor to a lot of the players in that room. To me, you cannot have enough good veterans who care about the group as opposed to caring about what's next for them. And it sounds, Billy, like you got a gem there in Chara.
That's really cool.
We do. Yeah.
That's really cool. One of the young guys that all three of us know, he's a Long Island kid, Charlie McAvoy. So I recruited Charlie when I was at Cornell. Wasn't successful, but probably made the right choice. So I wanted to see if you guys had a story about him, because he's one of those kids that I think is special too. And I remember when he was on his recruiting trip with his dad, coming to Cornell, he was a 15, 16-year-old kid. We didn't do a whole lot of young recruiting. And so it was just kind of like, we like you. We just wanted you to come and see the campus kind of thing. And, then we'll go and watch you. And through the day, between him and his dad, like, we just kind of fell in love with him. We were like, these people are just unbelievable people. And I remember we're sitting in the office with Shafe, and Shafe likes to put you on the spot sometimes, just pretty funny, as I'm sure that he's done that to you guys too.
Many.
So we're sitting in the office, and Shafe was like, these people are great. And then all of a sudden, we had no intentions of offering him a spot in the program, but because he was such a good kid, the dad was salt of the earth, all that kind of stuff. Shafe's like, well, what do you think? Should we offer him? Like in front of him. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so we ended up offering him, and obviously he chose BU, but I always like to tell that story to parents and to kids, because like that visit means a lot, and how you interact with your kid and how you interact with your parents. Like, we're watching that stuff all the time. And we've made the decision not to offer people that we wanted to offer based on those visits. We've done obviously what we had. And I remember it was right after Hurricane Sandy when he came in for the visit, and his dad's a plumber, owns a plumbing company, and was doing all this free work and was talking about the community and all this kind of stuff. And we were just like, these are people we have to have as a part of our program. So Dave, being a Long Island guy, do you have any specific Charlie McAvoy story from knowing him or anything like that?
Well, the McAvoys live about a mile from me. I
really?
see the Oh God, yeah, we're all Long Beach guys, and you're right about the family. They are unbelievable, and Charlie Mack Sr. is terrific. And after Sandy, yeah, you saw those McAvoy plumbing and heating trucks all over the neighborhood, and Big Chuck couldn't do enough to help get Long Beach back up and going again. And I still use their company all the time. If water's not coming out right or something's going on, first thing I do is I text Charlie and I ask him, hey, what do I do now? And generally, he's got a guy to me in less than 10 minutes. I love the guy, and the family's great too. I've been able to interact with all of them. My youngest goes to high school with one of Charlie's daughters, and she's got quite the bomb of a shot too, to be honest. But looking at young Charlie, I was coaching elsewhere when Charlie was just a kid in Long Beach, so I got to know kind of the later version of him as he was growing up. But I do remember having a conversation with his dad and with him as they were getting ready to get into the college process, and they picked my brain a lot about what schools I liked and what coaches were, what certain coaches were like.
Is that what you're saying?
I boned you, I guess. And Shireen was funny. She kept telling him to go to Michigan State. That's where she wanted him to go. So, but the kid he's just a quiet, humble kid. That's the beauty of him. But that's kind of what his dad is. That's kind of what his mom is. And that's why I think he's a huge success. And, the great story I have about Charlie is when he went to the national program, Donnie Granato, they had some big-time players there. Noah Hannafin was there, and Zach Werenski was there. They had some big-time guys there. And Charlie came in kind of a little, not under the radar, but not the high-fluting reputation that those guys had. And Donnie Granato sat down with him and said, you could be as good, if not better, than those guys, and here's how. And he bought in. To me, the mantra of Charlie Jr. is the fact that he is the most coachable player that a lot of coaches who have had him have talked about. They've just ranked him as incredibly coachable, and I think that's where his success comes from.
And to Dave's point, Charlie wasn't awarded a spot right away at the U.S. program. He actually was back at school in Long Island, and he got a call in school from, forgive me for not remembering who at the program called him and said,
probably Scott Monahan.
Are you still interested? Because somebody didn't come due to injury, I believe it was.
Right. Yep.
And Charlie's like, yeah, I don't know if he finished class that day or not, but that's when he left and he went there. So yeah, I've gotten to know, Charlie since he was a BU over
right.
the years, obviously real well with the Bruins. The thing that always comes to me right away when talking about Charlie is the word that he uses, maybe as much, if not more than any other word, and it's blessed. He says, I'm blessed to do this. I'm blessed to do that. He's a spiritual guy, family's, observant and spiritual and very grateful. And you talk about the parents, the father's company, the family business. They're grateful to have that and how they built that. And Charlie sees what his dad, Charlie Sr.'s done, building what the grandpa started. And they're so grateful. And Charlie's always using blessed in terms blessed and grateful. And that to me is symbolic or of his play. He just says, I want to go out there and take advantage of the position I've been put into because I want to be the best. I want to be this. I want to be that. And he's done that, fellas. And, tougher start of the year. wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. All right. And there was a lot of expectation for him this year. But I'd say the last 2 months of the season, holy smokes, was he awesome. And he was starting to really trend. I'm talking, top tier defenseman in the NHL. And I see in a few years a Norris Trophy finalist, if not award for him. He's that good. He's got the right attitude. He's got he's got enough swagger to it. He does. And all those guys that are that great need a swagger, cockiness, a little, what to them, a little P&V, and they're, they need it, but they also have the composure, and he's got a ton of composure to go with that too.
Hey, when you look back at that 2017 World Junior Championship game,
He was unreal.
Oh, if you go back and watch the gold medal game again, you'll understand why Charlie is the player that he is. I mean, he made some plays in that. Adam Fox was great in that game too, but Charlie made a couple plays in that game when that game was very much on the line. It could have gone either way to keep the U.S. in it and put him over the hump. So if you're looking for a great reference game to understand where Charlie McAvoy is as a player, go back and watch the gold medal game in 2017.
Yep. That was a fun game to watch for sure.
By the way, and speaking of which, I had a great workout with his dad sometime during that tournament too. His dad's a monster of a workout guy. So I think actually when we were still in Toronto before he went to Montreal, we were in the same hotel, and his dad was my workout partner just about every day.
Have you ever gone surfing with him?
No, but I've watched it. It's unreal.
Yeah, he's a really good surfer, and that's another. Charlie became a good surfer too, and so there's another lesson for your kids out there: balance, energy, leg strength. Like his dad was tournament level, like sponsorship level, but Charlie's good, but he's not as good. But that made a big difference too.
I'll tell you what, Billy and Toph, this is a good one. I'm actually going to mention this to Jeff when I talk to him next, because as you know, he's got my 05 son all jacked up and riled up and working out like a monster right now. Surfing, I found surfing to be great as a goalie. I found it to be one of the great off-ice things that I did because I grew up on the beach. So, once the season ended and once we got into late March, everybody put the wetsuits on and the hoodies on, and we would get out there and we'd surf straight through to almost Thanksgiving. It was great. It was awesome.
That cold weather, like you gotta, you go surfing. Go to
Hawaii. Beach guys, that's what we do. But I thought surfing was great. It was a great off. It was and you know what it does? It really helps your depth perception, your anticipation, and your angling, because you got to get on the wave the right way. So there's a lot of
depth perception's called when you're 10 feet under. You're 10 feet under.
That's death perception is what that is. But it's I just thought it was a great sport for thinking about how you have to read and react. I always enjoyed surfing.
Interesting. Well, you talk about all those parallels and probably learn a lot. I'm trying to segue here. I'm trying to do the reporter thing, use a good segue. I don't think I'm hitting the home run on it though. But one of the things I wanted to ask you guys, I felt that a huge part of my hockey education was when I was a volunteer coach at Miami, and I was watching the game from up top, and I got to see everything. And, even doing the pre-scouts, kind of knowing what was going to happen, you could almost script a game based upon knowing what the other team systems were, know what you guys were doing, all that different kind of stuff. And now I'm in the broadcast booth doing color like you guys. And I feel like I'm right back there where I'm watching everything. And I feel like it's just such a great learning thing as I go through it. So Dave, why don't we start with you? What have you learned about the game of hockey in your profession of what you do, and being able to analyze, watch the video, but then watch it from up top and see things unfold?
I got to tell you, a ton. And I know that the new rage of doing games as an analyst is putting them ice side, and I understand the merits of it. I'm not a fan, because I think if you're going to analyze a game, be upstairs where you can see the game, because your job, again, we're there to analyze, inform, and entertain. And if you want to inform and analyze, the best place to see the game is from up top. And when I scout, I'm the same way. When I scout, I sit in corners. I like to be a little further away from the ice than really down low, unless I'm watching something specific, because you really see the game unfold. And sitting in corners might be the best way to watch a hockey game, because you really see the game come to you when you're in corners. You see lanes and patterns and open ice and that kind of thing much better. But I'm with you, Toph. When you sit upstairs, the game comes to you. When you're watching games on TV and you're from that high perspective, the game comes to you. I think you notice a lot of stuff that it's really hard to notice from on the ice. Now, from a coaching perspective, all my years, whether it be the minor leagues or junior or youth, whatever, when you're on the bench, there are certain things that you can see differently because you're right in the trenches. So you're micromanaging on a different level. I think when you're up top, you can macro manage a game in a different way. You can see more things come at you. You may not see anything specific that you can see from down on the bench because you're getting the feel and the emotion and the vibe and the sound of the game. But I think sitting upstairs is the best way to see a game.
What I learned from watching the game and analyzing it like we all do now is that we have a tendency to overanalyze. B, it's a simple game, relatively speaking. And C, sometimes I realize that, holy smokes, I don't know what the heck's going on. And I got to rewatch it. And you know what? I love being upstairs. I love being down in between the benches. I've done, hundreds, maybe thousands of games upstairs overall. I don't know about how many games I've done between the benches, but I would say I've been down there at least between 50 and 100 times for games between versus and college stuff and everything, whatever. I love the energy of down low, but up high you get the visual, you get the vibe, and the sense of systems and that kind of stuff. I don't know about you, Dave, and Toph too. Some days I pick up what's going on real clear, real easily, and other days again I'm having a hard time really seeing what's going on. But then what I do is if I can't really see or figure out what one team's trying to do over the other, I go back to my instincts and I just go back to other things too. And maybe that's no fault of my own not being able to pick it up. Maybe one team isn't playing structured or system or anything like that. And I just go back to watching hockey. And I just go back to talking hockey because sometimes I do think that we, as a entity, I have a tendency that we overanalyze. It really is a simple game. You get the puck, you move the puck, you shoot the puck. If you're a goalie, you try and stop the puck.
You try.
Different, right. It's really a simple game when it's all said and done. But we've gotten so scientific in the coaching end of it and the scouting and the video that broadcasters better be unbelievably scientific and convoluted too. And sometimes I think we lose sight of what we're actually doing.
Billy, I'm gonna follow you up on this one. This is a great one. You guys all know Bob Mancini, who is now doing great work for USA Hockey. So I'm in a game. I was scouting for Toronto at the time. Bob and I are in the end. We're watching Michigan State play Ferris, and not much was happening in the game. And I turned to Bob at one point. We're like late in the second period, and I said to him, I hadn't written a lot down about some of the players I was watching, and I turned to Bob and I said, am I missing something? Or he goes, you're missing something. He goes, this is a junior B game with a band. So like you're trying to find something that is there. And Billy, you're right. There are some games where there's just not a lot going on. And you know what? You go back to talking hockey. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting. I've found in doing the TV that there are some games that are a lot easier to call than others, when there's scoring chances and it's exciting versus, the 1-0 head scratch and chip it in, go get it, break it out, chip it in the other way, go get it, break it out. Like it's a little bit tougher sometimes.
That's where and there's games in general where you felt better as a player. All of us have felt better as a player than you do on a certain day or a certain night. And what do you have to do in those games when you don't feel great as a broadcaster? I write down 2 or 3 things and I kind of go back to them and I just build a little theme around them. And I just try and go back to the basics, so to speak. Because if I was a player and I didn't feel good, if you try and do too much, you usually get yourself and your team in trouble. Just go back to simple basics. Find one thing to talk about. You're right. If the game sucks, start telling other stories about other stuff out there. Have a little fun, whatever. And sometimes it's actually okay. And I know some networks might not like this, but I've said at times, hey, you know what? This game could use a bottle or a jar of Metamucil. It is all stopped up and it's not that fluid right now, if you know what I mean. And it's okay to say that. I think it's okay.
Billy, here's what's a neat point, and Toph, you'll realize this as you go along, you do more games, and that is, I think when you get into one of those games where there's not a lot happening, how good your chemistry is as a broadcast crew and with your production team becomes vital. And this is one of the great lessons that I've learned and being part of the CBS Sports Network. And, Billy, obviously you remember working with Ross Malloy and the way that he produced the game. There was always a lot of elements. There was always a lot of graphics. There were storylines built into stuff that was going on, not around the game itself, but just within the story within the story. And so there would be games that weren't great, and your producer will get in your ear and say, okay, this game stinks. So we're going to start exploring this, or I'm going to roll in this piece of video from a past game, or I'm going to roll in this graphic. Let's talk about this. Or we might look at the graphic sheet and say, hey, do me a favor, put this up there now. We need to get away from this. And so you got a play-by-play guy and an analyst that are good together. You got a ringside reporter that's dialed in as well. You got a good trio there that can do some stuff. And that's how you take a lousy game and you make it an entertaining product, because now it goes from being a game to a show. And I think that the real good ones can take a 1-0 game where there's not much going on and make it into something where you're giving out some topics and you're inviting the audience to sit at the bar with you and have a beer and talk hockey. That's where I think the good folks in our game earn their money.
Very cool. Very cool. You mentioned the entertaining aspect of it. And for a sport that's notoriously buttoned up when it comes to talking to people like yourselves, a lot of cliches, a lot of giving information, but not really giving information. Where do you see the game at today? And do you feel like now players are a little bit more accepting and they feel a little bit more empowered to maybe show a little bit more of their personality as opposed to maybe 5-10 years ago too? So where do you kind of see that as a part of the game today? Billy, why don't we start with you?
It's definitely changed for the better a bit in that regard. It's not that much change, Toflo, but it's definitely more than it was 10 years ago, no question. We're seeing a shift in player dynamics now. I'm sure you saw it near the end of, especially at the end of when you were coaching at Cornell, how, you can't talk, down to the players anymore. You've got to talk with them and you've got to give them their opinions and their, you know what I mean? Like, the players demand to be heard now. So we're seeing more of that work its way to the NHL as well, whether it's personalities like PK Subban or, I'm trying to think of other guys that are really Erik Karlsson, and just kind of how he carries himself. How about the way we're seeing it. And one of the things, personality and dress, how they're dressing now, their style that's coming out more and more. And that's great. I mean, I deal with David Pastrnak on a regular basis. And here's a guy that, when I say he doesn't care, he doesn't say anything that is inappropriate. He just he's himself. I say it all the time, there's never a bad day in Pasta Land, ever. There's never a bad day there. The kid just has an awesome outlook, and he lets that come through in his personality. And we're seeing more and more of that. We still have a sport that is afraid for many kids to step out on line a little bit. But it's better. You're seeing it at the youth game, more and more personality. I will admit, a couple of years ago, I was still the fuddy-duddy who would say, what are you doing wearing, number 68? What are you doing wearing 91? What are you doing? And, I think I've learned now that maybe all right, the kids are, it's part of their personality. Now, that doesn't mean that their work ethic can stink. That doesn't mean if they do something wrong and they hot dog it in a game, where they'll put their ass, they'll be their ass on the bench, because that's, don't disrespect the game. But it's okay to have personality. I'm a big loudmouth, so why shouldn't the others? Just don't do it irreverent. Don't be rude. Don't be disrespectful.
Cool.
And Toph, as you've seen on the college side, it's funny because I deal with the NHL players a little differently from the scouting side. I kind of see them more behind the scenes than I see them from a media perspective. So I enjoy that part of it, and then you see them get on camera, and a lot of them maintain that same personality. So it's good to see the genuineness in 95% of the NHL players you deal with. But on the college side, I think a lot of these players are so used to their entire life being on camera. I mean, remember Cole Caulfield and the internet sensation that he was as a kid. I know there are other guys that have been in the same way. Ollie Wahlstrom, with the big spin around move at the Boston Garden, and that thing's been played 4 million times. I think these kids are so used to having their life on camera that they react pretty darn well to the media spotlight around them. And there are certain programs, again, I'll reference North Dakota. I mean, those guys are on TV all the time. They've got film crews around them all the time. They've got weekly shows that are online, that are on their website, as do many of the other schools. A lot of them are really good. So I think these kids have gotten much more media savvy. Plus, they love to talk, because I think the majority of those kids realize that the highlight of their playing career is right now. So they are a ton of fun to talk to. There have been some great personalities. And, you go back to your Miami teams. I mean, Sean Corrali was fun to talk to. Austin Czarnik was great. Riley Barber had no filter. Like, he was a fun guy to talk to. He told you how it was. I'll give you the best story. One of my early years, we're at Ohio State, and I just saw him this year when I did a game. I was with Nate Gennon, and I remember interviewing Nate Gennon for a feature. and it's the morning of the game, and we're sitting down, and Ohio State was struggling a little bit, and he was talking about how the forwards weren't doing their job, and they were playing too soft, and this wasn't going right. And I stopped the tape, and I went, this is the last thing you want me sending back to the network to get rolled into a feature with those comments. Let's start this again. And it's funny because I remember the story when I told it to him. So some guys are very gregarious and can say anything. Some kids are a little bit more reserved. But it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Once those kids start to trust you and understand that they can talk to you, and they understand the partnership of the TV side and the program side, and that we're all in this together to make each other look good, that starts to bring out much better stories, much better personality, and that's when you really start to have some fun.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, well, I got one more question for you guys here, and it's about the youth hockey experience. And you both have kids that are playing youth hockey right now, and youth hockey dads, youth hockey coaches, and steeped in the culture. Where do you kind of see the game at right now? And I've been working really hard to try and put a lot of content out there that can help improve youth hockey, because I see where it's headed. I don't exactly love what I'm seeing. So what's maybe one or two things that you guys would do to maybe help improve the youth hockey experience for the players and families out there? Billy, I'll start with you on this one.
Oh, Toph, we don't have enough time.
That's why I kept it at 10, because if we started with one, that's all we would have talked about.
I guess it's a rhetorical answer. I'll start with this, and I'll do it as quickly as possible. When let's go back to when Young Americans began. Okay, in that era, and we already, there were minor Hawks for us, and there were Team Illinois and everything. At that time, did people think that was really crazy? Meaning, was that those guys are nuts type of stuff? Those guys are over the top. Maybe. I can't remember that. I remember a great opportunity. So every once in a while, and I've been on your other show, which I love being on, and I can rant with the best of them. But every once in a while, I try and keep it in perspective and say, okay, are we being too crazy? And we are. We are being too crazy. So again, but on the other hand, every generation has a new definition of crazy, I guess, right? I mean, it goes and goes and goes and goes. So we went from AAA, now we're doing super teams, now we're doing this, that, and kids homeschooling and training, 9 days a week and everything. I mean, ideally, if I could live in my bubble world, I'd have it to where you play until you're 12 years old, or maybe 13 for your great town team. And everybody played, let's call it 12. I don't know, where, you build up in your town, and every town has, a program. And the next thing you know, you get, the state tournaments or mega tournaments and everything. And you play with your buddies and you form friendships and all that. The problem is, the world doesn't work like that anymore. So I really don't, as much as I'd love that, I don't think that's going to happen ever again. I know it kind of exists a little in New England, not nearly as much. Maybe in Minnesota still a bit for a while, but I'd love that. I'd love the fact, I'll say this too. Hockey parents get a bad rap, but it's incredibly justified. Does that make sense? Because there's crazy parents, dance moms are nuts, and then lacrosse parents are crazy. The reality is this: parents ruin kids' sports. Parents ruin kids' activities because they just want to keep doing, because by doing all that, we think we're giving our kids the best opportunity, whatever that means, to succeed, right? But then also, we're not having to deal with them as much. I can be guilty of it at times. I fully admit it. I'm not perfect. I get it. Like summertime. Yeah, you know what? Let's send him to a camp for another few hours, because he can go do something, right? And it's good for him. I've done it. I have. But with regard to hockey, I think we go crazy with it, like a lot of the other sports too. I honestly, it's a bad answer. We don't have enough time to do all the things, to talk about all the things that I'd love to see change. Coaching is amazing now. Maybe not. Maybe we overcoach at times. And as I said on your show I think it might have been a year ago now, look, I want to win as much as the next person. And I do enjoy the winning aspect of it, but we go too crazy in the winning aspect of it too, especially at the younger ages. So that's where I'm at. But again, we let's do one of these just on youth hockey.
Perfect.
Billy, I'm going to play off something that you finished with, and the winning component of it too. I mean, I tell people this all the time when I get asked about the coaching thing. Like, I feel like I've got a unique perspective on this because I've coached mites. and I've coached pros. You know, I've coached, with the exception of the NCAA, I've coached at every level, and it's been, whether it be the AAA level of minor leagues or the AA level of the Central League and the Macon Whoopie in that era, and junior with the New York Apple Corps program where we threw up dozens of kids into Division I. I mean, I've got a chance to be in a lot of different areas of it, and winning is great. There's no question. But I think the biggest problem that we're having at the youth level is the coaches want to be a little bit too involved in the winning and not let the players go out and play to win. I think the coaches are playing to win, and sometimes at all costs, and it's affecting the development of their players because you get certain coaches who really have a limited grip on what they're doing, and they just roll their 10 best players out there for half a game, and that's it. And the rest of the guys, it's kind of screw you. And God forbid one of those bubble guys makes a mistake. I mean, they might not play for a month. So, and it drives me crazy. I mean, my philosophy has always been, and I was at Tier 1 U14 this year, and we thought ourselves were pretty competitive, and where Aaron Asham, former NHL player Aaron Asham, and I were working together a lot this year. And the one thing we kind of agreed on was, let's coach to put our players in good situations, but let the players go out and play to win. Let them go out and earn their wins. And sometimes you might have to rely on a player that's a little under the radar that might have to go out there and give you a big shift. Let them do it. They're not going to. What do we start this conversation with? You don't learn anything unless you fail, right? You got to put some players out there in situations where they're going to make some mistakes, and then be able to explain to you what those mistakes were and learn from it that way. You got to be the kind of coach on the bench that asks questions of their players. Hey, what happened on that play? Walk me through it, so that they can almost teach themselves. The biggest problem we're having right now, the game is not the teacher anymore. The teachers have begun to overteach a bit, and Billy's right. There's a lot of good ones. But the game needs to be more of a teacher. And I think that's where we have gotten off the rails a little bit.
You're right, but the parents also, there's always an element on every team.
Yep.
And I've been blessed for a few years with phenomenal parents, but it can trickle in here and there, where all of a sudden, we're not winning as much. And it's great. We see when they do win, how good it feels. And you see that. And, all of a sudden, so then at Squirt Major or Pee Wee Minor, they say, I want my kid to win more. I want him to win more. So they start putting more stuff into, more onus on the winning. So anyways, it can be a vicious cycle. It can be, but it's such a great sport. I know we're obviously biased, but let it teach you some life lessons, and hopefully it can help take you somewhere. It doesn't mean to even college, just it can take you to places literally and figuratively that you never would experience before if you didn't play it.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. We are all very blessed to be a part of this great game. And I'm very thankful that got the chance to talk to you guys again. Had you both on the podcast individually, and now to get you guys together to, I think you said, shoot the crap, Billy. I think that's the verbiage
I have
that
a
you used earlier.
filter. I have a good filter. Yes.
And your filter's gotten so much better over the years since I first knew you.
It's got me. So I'm going to get that book out from my Young Americans, the first year and everything. I think it was 1984.
Wow.
I believe that was it. That's great. Again, say hi to your family and your. Are they still all in Chicago?
Yep, everybody's still out in Chicago. I'm the only one that left. So, is your family out there too still?
I have my mom, dad, and sister are still there.
Cool.
They are. Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, I'm sure we'll see you guys in a rink at some point. Well,
Hopefully.
soon. Yeah, I don't know when soon will be, but I'm sure we'll see you at some point in the rinks. And thanks again for taking the time.
You got it.
All right, take care, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, bye.